Owain Yeoman and Tim Kang aren't real cops, but they're
TV police!
the TV police.
TV police! Every week I do that. I don't know if you've heard our theme song, but maybe today, given that you're our guest of honor, you'd be kind enough to open with a TV police. How do you feel about that?
Wow, putting her on the spot.
I can give it a go.
Leah's a pro. I've got so much faith in her. She's okay. And in 3, 2, 1, action.
TV, please!
I mean, flawless. Flawless.
It's different when Leah does it. It's
I see.
great.
It is an absolute pleasure to welcome to the TV Police studio, Miss Leah Andrew. Thank you so much for joining us. Leah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm from Hull in East Yorkshire, UK. We have a pug, a 3-year-old pug called Ralphie. He's named after Ralph Wiggum from The Simpsons.
Love that.
And I'm currently working in software, which I love, and performing on the side.
We are thrilled to have you here. I have to give some context to our viewers and our listeners. Leah is a massive super fan of the show. Tell us a little bit about when you first discovered the show, Leah. Obviously, you are our very first special guest fan co-host. So the responsibility is huge. You are setting the bar.
Absolutely no pressure. I love
Keep
that.
the pressure on, yeah.
So I remember, I think it was my mum had put it on the TV. It must have been the pilot episode or the second episode. And I sat down and watched it with her. I was like, this is really good. This is the kind of thing that I'm into. And so then I kept watching it. And like I said to you guys, because my dad is a retired policeman, he loves to see how being in the forces is depicted in TV and film. So it would be, sometimes we'd watch it, the three of us. Sometimes I would just watch it, and then I got the DVDs, and I would watch it pretty much all the time. I think if my friends were to say one big memory about me was that I wouldn't shut up about the show. I loved it so much.
It's funny because we joke about the fact that the show is often sort of considered a family show.
No, like my mum's other show that was like constantly on the TV was Medium. So I feel like The Mentalist was quite a bit less gruesome than that, quite a bit more family friendly in that sense.
Your house was full of very psychic orientated shows. That's interesting. Medium, The Mentalist. I told Tim a story about how there was a psychic at a party once. And I sat down with her and I was expecting something light and trivial. And she pulled out a card that I think was a death card. Yeah. And then basically told me I was going to be dead by the time I was 30. I was like, who brought this woman?
Nice.
Like this party is the worst party ever. Suffice to say, I'm now a couple of years older than 30. So I made it. I think, it's a good jumping off point for us talking about episode 3 today, obviously Red Tide, because there's so much power of suggestion. I think Patrick Jane talks about this in one of the first episodes. You wanted to believe that you could contact this person, so therefore the power became real. And I think that power of suggestion is really, really prevalent today. It starts with the discovery of a young surfer, Christine Tanner, who's washed up on the shore. And then as the episode progresses, Patrick Jane uses his sort of suggestive powers to be able to frame the conspirators and get them to turn on each other and reveal their guilt. But as you say, along the way, there's a lot of twists and turns. Mr. Tim Kang, please.
The CBI team discovers that Christine Tanner, found on a beach, actually has fresh water in her lungs. So that points to foul play. And then we start investigating her inner circle and her family.
This was an episode written by Ashley Gable, one of our senior writers. And I thought what was really interesting was right from the get-go, we've got a continuation of a lot of the same themes that we'd seen in episodes 1 and 2. What was nice at the start of this episode was that there was also an attempt by Jane to play a little bit of cop. We're on the beach and he's talking to the kids and he starts off with like, any boyfriends or anyone hooking up?
He's kind of easing into police procedure. But then he falls right back into what he does and builds that sand castle. Like, I mean,
my gosh. Yeah.
And I remember seeing it on set and just going, that's And it was so funny, just the visual of this. You could literally live in it, right? I mean, he may be trying to join us a little bit in the questions that he's posing, but then the very next scene, he's at it again and doing his thing, in a competition with that poor girl, sitting next to him with, like the little tiny, tiny.
He's stalling her bucket to do it. In the same scene where he's interviewing them with you guys, and like he said, he's like, "Oh, did she have any enemies?" And then not even 2 minutes later, he's just like, I'm just gonna sit here," and just lays down in the sand. And then you guys are just like,
"We're leaving."
Yeah, you have. We'll go.
We're out.
And he says that in his suit, right? He's wearing a full like a suit, dress shoes, and he just lies down in the sand. It was great. That was great.
But you're right. The sandcastle scene, I think what it was beautiful in doing was just serving to underline the fact that you tell me as an audience member, Leah, one of the things that I always thought was tremendously appealing about The Mentalist was the way it could switch gears. And you would go from being tremendously serious, and we're talking about a homicide, and then suddenly we'd switch into Patrick Jane building the world's largest sandcastle.
I think it was the pilot where there's somebody pretending, like imitating Red John. And it's a very serious scene when he makes this realization. But then came the infamous line of, "He irks me. He's irksome."
He's irksome.
And it's just that immediate switch of like, you want to laugh at that, but also somebody was murdered on the bed.
Those tonal shifts are also part of Jane's process. It unsettles people. A little bit of humor. I think it's a wonderful tipping off point to talk about him being discovered in the trailer park with Flipper, right? Because that's a perfect example. You've got a guy who's sitting across from a murder suspect, drinking a beer, playing some chess. But in doing that, it's a wonderful way of disarming his subjects.
I think there was a lot of development in the first season that then, once I started watching more, I was like, I feel like there's some plot holes I've missed, and went back. And then that was kind of the start of it.
Yeah. And we found that, haven't we, Tim, in our rewatch, that, the show it's twisty. It's got a lot of twists and turns. And sometimes I know that the last episode, I had to watch it a couple of times just to try and figure out where different pieces of the puzzle were all playing.
And that reveal,
and it's a great skill, I think, to be able to do this. And it's a testament to the writers.
With Flipper, where Jane, we see Jane in his trailer. I didn't expect that, and I've seen it. And again, I was in it. And we're on Flipper, and then we turn over and we reveal Jane sitting in there, and I go, "Oh yeah, that's right, he was in there." I didn't even expect it.
The thing I didn't realize in rewatching it was I realized that Flipper is part of the audience of people on the beach watching the sandcastle being built. I didn't realize that until I went back and watched it. I was like, they probably got together, and he probably went, "Great sandcastle." To which they went, "Let's go have a chat and play some chess." Tell me, did your dad also watch the show? Was he already retired?
Yeah, so he retired, I believe, in 2012. So yeah, the show had been on for a few years before he retired. But I think now more than ever, he likes to see how it's done to still have that connection to the Force in a way. So I definitely wrangled him into watching a few episodes with me. And I know there was it Carl Sonnenberg as well, the technical advisor. And so I was showing my dad sort of like, because I think Carl and I chatted a few times on social media. And so I think that really interested my dad, that you guys had done it right, in a sense, that you had the advisor who had been a police officer, who knew what they were talking about. So he really liked that.
I'm so glad you brought that up, and that makes me very happy. What was interesting about this episode was that we started to see some of that stuff that you were talking about with Carl being put into effect. And we take this responsibility very seriously. If you are a member of the services and you're like, okay, that's exactly how I clear a room, or that's exactly how I hold a weapon or apprehend a subject, we consider it a tremendous privilege as a member of the TV police.
The main thing I got from his stories was just the camaraderie as well. Like, some of his best friends now were people that he worked with in the Force. And I guess as well, when you're working such weird shifts, you spend a lot of time with these people, and they do become your second family.
I think similar things happen for me and Owen and us as a cast. You know, we not to compare it to what your dad did. We kept the same hours, like similar hours, right? Like working all through the night and watching the sun come up. So yeah, it creates that.
I think the only difference is at the end of the day, your dad was putting his life on the line. My most serious days at work involved, I think my makeup might need touching up. So I don't know if the stakes were quite as high.
You got sand in your shoes.
There you go.
I got sand in my shoes. Thank you, Leah. Thank you. Yeah. What you're saying about your dad really does ring true, because the cop partnership was a very special part of mine and Tim's on-screen relationship. But more than that, it was underscored as a friendship too. And the bromance, I guess, of Rigsby and Cho was something that we both loved playing, and that was only further informed and reinforced by our own friendship. So I think you're right. When you spend this much time in a certain job with people, that is, you are literally a second family. Do you guys all have your one-word summary?
Yes.
Ready.
I have not spelled it right.
So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we've got turbulent, snot, Callie. I mean, there we go. Just leave it there. Turbulent snot in Callie. Can't think of a better way to describe episode 3. I remember it being a very overcast day when we shot all of the beach stuff, but it was quite a treat. I noticed, Tim, as I was rewatching these opening episodes, we don't spend a lot of time in our own established territory, do we? We're sort of jumping around a lot in, like, I keep expecting to be back in the bullpen, but a lot of these episodes are in sheriff's offices like Santa Marta or Napa Valley. Is that because we hadn't built the set yet?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it was more of a practical issue, right? Like they didn't exist yet, you know? And once the sets were built, that following episode was all about displaying the set. And, you know, we never left at the headquarters.
So I was very aware in the opening few episodes of every room looked a little bit like we'd maybe just sequestered a room that was being used for some sort of function. Like there were always chairs up against. Do you know what I mean? It was like when you hire a ballroom in a hotel for a wedding or something. You're like, this will do. This is fine. Yeah, we'll shoot it in here. It was. I do remember being very excited to be out on location and also be relatively close to home. We sort of jumped all over the place with the pilot and episode 2, but this was an opportunity to be in Santa Monica, which is local, or was local for both of us, and albeit it's, you know, Santa Marta. Right from the get-go, it's pretty grisly. We've got a kid discovering the body. You've got a young child like doing what young children do, poking around and playing.
It's just like pulling off seaweed, rolls the body over.
Well, I was trying to think about that because I have 2 young daughters, and they're 4 and 10. Oh my goodness, they would have been freaking out left and right if they would not be. That was a very calm young lady.
The pilot, where we brought up that point that Lisbon was so calm after she had shot her husband. Mrs. Tolliver had shot her husband, and Lisbon calmly walked out. And the mom in Red Tide also was so calm, but this is a situation.
She's very chill.
Yeah, where you wouldn't be calm. You would be screaming, grabbing your kid, and running.
It did feel a little bit like, you know, kids were very used to pulling bodies out of that particular area of ocean.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, we got another one. We had a really, really fabulous ensemble of younger actors in this. They're all banded together by the ringleader of Hope, who spent an inordinate amount of time in this episode at a level of distress that cannot be good for your mental health. You know, every single time that actress was on screen, she was in some state of breakdown. And that is just remarkable. And she did it brilliantly as well. But there was a real sense of fun in this episode too, because for the first time, we were getting to be a traveling band as a Mentalist family. I remember having all the trailers parked down in Santa Monica Beach, getting a real sense for the first time of this is a show that is taking off. And that was really, really exciting. And I do remember consciously clocking that. I remember thinking like, oh, episode 3, we're really doing this.
By episode 3, Leah, were you in it?
I think it was probably more watching casually at that point.
Okay.
And then when season 2 came out, I was in. The question that I did have for you guys is, what was the moment for each of you that you went, this is something, like we've really got what's going to be a long-running show on our hands?
Go ahead, Owen.
No, you go, because I think I've touched on it already, and I'll follow up.
I still don't know that if it's gonna go. I was doing episode 3. I couldn't see beyond episode 3, right? We may or may not get episode 4. I mean, that's kind of how I lived that whole thing. So when season 1 finished, I was done, ready to do other things. And we touched on this on a previous episode to my agent. Okay, are there any auditions coming up? Because I don't know if we're going to come back for season 2. Fingers crossed. So that's kind of how I, even from episode to episode, you just kind of enjoy it. And that's how I processed everything.
Yeah.
And Tim always had a very healthy way of doing that I felt was a really good insurance policy. I tended to be a little bit more emotionally invested in whether or not we would be. But the fact of the matter is it's kind of pointless because you have no control over that. Jumping straight back in to the episode, one thing that I really want to give an honourable mention out to Jamie McShane, who played Mr. Tanner, the dad. He was the drunk father, Christine Tanner's dad, who's just broken, and clearly Christine was, a great help to him at home. This is a guy who I've worked with across several series, and he is such a phenomenal actor. And his level of commitment and emotionality as the broken dad really, really stood out to me in this episode. Mm-hmm. Do you remember did you work with him at all, Tim? Did you have any scenes with him?
I didn't have any scenes with him that I remember, but I 100% agree with you on what he brought to the role and what he brought to the episode, as a whole.
Yeah, I really remember vividly in my mind the scene where he is, and this was always quite a theatrical trick that the show liked to lean into. Did you see even in the opening first 3 episodes the amount of times that the killer is paraded in front of the family, or the suspect is sort of like, is that him? Is that the guy who killed my so-and-so? And again,
it always seemed to be Rigsby that was then having to slam the suspect into a wall.
Right, yes. Yeah. Like, sometimes what is real is not entertaining. And at the end of the day, honestly, we're making entertainment. Have you ever been hypnotized?
No, I don't think so.
You ever been hypnotized, Tim?
Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Maybe you...
I don't think so.
I mean, maybe you don't remember it. That's even more sinister. I might have been. It's possible.
Not.
Probably not.
I say that because I remember at college, someone brought in a hypnotist to our junior common room. But there were other people who were so into it. People who were just getting up and clucking like chickens and doing all kinds of ridiculous. Yeah. I'm like, are you doing this for real? I literally remember sitting up there going, is this for real? Or are there people who are that susceptible? Have you ever been in a situation where you've watched people be hypnotized?
Oh, yeah. Like when we went to go see Derren Brown, and he did a section where he essentially hypnotized the entire audience, but did preface it with, this will only work on you if you're susceptible. And it's kind of like believing in psychics, where I would actually quite like to be susceptible to that, just to see what it's like. But it didn't work on me. As far as I know, it didn't work on me.
Yeah, now we have to go back and check. I'm desperately trying to bring it back to the show. That's what's happening here with Jane, because he really does. He looks for any opportunity, I think, to just get people's guard down. So whether that's humor, whether it's building a sandcastle, whether it's playing chess with someone, or whether it's sort of what I loved about the dynamic between Jane and the kids was that he was constantly challenging them to help him. So it was like, help me find the killer. You guys want to find the killer, right? So there was this sort of sense of, oh, we're in this all together. The only thing that really tipped the hand of their guilt was Hope's sort of desire to always jump on someone else who was suggested. Maybe it was your dad. Yeah, it was him. Yeah, it was him. I remember clocking that she was a little bit too keen sometimes.
Yeah, I did like as well, in that scene specifically, I'd noticed that in the run-up to Patrick Jane hypnotizing them, he had mentioned, oh, maybe you saw somebody stood over there on the bluff.
Right.
And so for her to then use that as the exact scenario was almost a little bit too perfect. But obviously none of her friends realized at the time, didn't realize that she wasn't really hypnotized.
I just wanted to do a quick mention. One of our dear actors, Greg Itzen.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah,
he was introduced in this episode as Virgil Manelli, Lisbon's boss, our boss, and having worked with him a number of times, we know him also from the series 24. He passed away a few years ago, and And I had not, up to that point, besides Owen, met anybody as nice and as forthcoming and as warm as Greg, and just wanted to remember him.
I have wonderful remembrances of Greg. Personally, he was always a very kind, generous, positive man. And for some reason, I have an image of him as Manelli fishing in the pier in an episode. And that's kind of how I always remember Greg. I think where they'd retired the Manelli character and Jane catches up with him on a pier in a later episode. But in a strange way, that's how I kind of memorialize Greg in my mind.
Just want to say on the subject of honourable mentions for actors that Brett Cullen as Kurdick was really great. And, you know, he's someone who has been one of those guys who, you know, that guy from that thing.
I just wanted to touch on one thing that I thought was interesting as we've been talking about these early episodes. We are slowly rolling out more and more bits of information about these characters. And I thought there was a nice parallel between what we share about Lisbon's background in this episode, right? And it parallels, he used the character of the kid, Frankie O'Keefe, right, from the previous episode to parallel Jane's journey, right? That need for revenge. In this episode, and Lisbon finds that character development through Mr. Tanner, the father, right? Her father was the same type of person. So we're starting to learn more and more about their background and their pathos as we go on.
It's a very good point, Tim, being able to drop those little personal things in by osmosis, because then what we get is the full circle moment in this story. That beautiful moment right at the end of the episode where she hands him the card and says, for the good of your family, take care of them and take care of yourself. And I love that because those little vignettes, those little moments to get to know the characters better. I also thought we had a wonderful first challenge to you in the interrogation room, Tim, because up until now we'd seen Cho as the formidable smooth operator in that interrogation room. And then you're in there with Kurdick's character and you give him the spiel and he goes, do you get a lot of confessions with that?
Like, yeah.
And you're like,
it's interesting because the writers do that. Keep Cho in check. Like, you're not gonna steamroll every single person that's in there. So as soon as he's doing good, they send in somebody that doesn't buy any of that, you know? So it's really funny to see.
There was a lovely meta moment in that interrogation scene too, because as the interrogation started, I was like, gosh, the lighting's low in this interrogation room. Maybe Cho's just going to seduce a confession out of him because it was so romantic. And then
that's where your head went. I went to the dimly lit room, the spinning light bulb.
I get it, but what's interesting is that
earlier with Amanda, and when you were talking about Cho's very cinched t-shirt, so it all ties together, really. Yeah.
All right.
Leah, you put it. I mean,
I see. Okay, got it.
Basically powerless, sat in a low-lit romantic room with those cinched shirts. Forget it. Just the distraction alone, I'd be like, sure, I did it. Whatever.
The next moment, the strawberries and champagne were about to come in.
What I loved was the way that Lisbon actually references it. She's like, you know, she says something like, other than the bad lighting conditions, I didn't think that was going to get him. I think you're absolutely right, Tim. We're building now a family full of like amusements, foibles, resentments, character observations. We've seen these people doing their cop thing. We're now fleshing them out as humans. And that's really exciting. I think it probably feels like one of the first episodes where we're really beginning to stretch our wings a little bit, you know. If the pilot episode is the exploration and the sophomore episode is the reaffirmation of the pilot, the third episode is a feeling of like, let's see who we are and see what we can do. So I think that all those things teed up nicely. I'd never noticed this, but the body of the security guard in the concrete, right? And when they cut it out, right, they lifted it. There's a really body shape. Did you see that? I was like, that was amazing. I'd never clocked that, but these are the little things that with rewatches, you're like, that's so brilliantly done. Like this,
nobody addresses it, and so it's just like
Flintstone style stone. With the nose, that was it.
Castle.
That was the equivalent. That was the concrete perp equivalent of that. I'll fast track this through to the end, but it brings us into recurrent themes and motifs like Jane becoming the one who's irksome. He consciously puts himself in people's face, and it's all part of the showmanship again, all part of the reveal. Unsettle people, get them off their axis. Some of the lines that Simon had, I don't know if he improvised them. You filthy old goat.
I loved the reference back to the pilot.
Sweaty old pervert and filthy goat. I mean,
I don't know if it was meant to reference the pilot, but I just kept remembering. So when there's the first murder and the woman shoots her husband, and Jane says, "Oh well, because you'd have punched me by now. If you hadn't killed her, you would have punched me."
Right.
And so then in this episode, when he punches, and he's kind of like, "Yeah, I don't think he did it. He's not good for it."
Right.
Leah, this is why I love having you on the show, and I knew you wouldn't disappoint. I put on the footnote here, an innocent man would have punched me by now. And it's true. Like, Jane has this ability to be equally revelatory, but also equally frustrating and annoying to the people around him. And that's what gets the job done. So, yes, he irks the team.
And just to kind of plug Simon here, that was his talent, pulling 100%. That off, sitting on that fence. I mean, it's a tough job to do that, right? So, hats off.
To be equally charming and sort of have that irksome thing that was deliberately turned on. And it became, I think, a bit of a trope that he had fun with. How many times can I get punched in the face?
So he didn't punch him, but he was talking about him sleeping with the victim, but he did when it came to the murder. So,
and what was really interesting, again, was the twisty-turny nature of it, so that when you get him brought in, he's outmaneuvered. He outmaneuvers our interrogation. He walks away. Then there's that horrible, despicable parting beat with Lisbon where he looks at her and goes, "Oh, you were 15 years younger."
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, he is awful. He is awful. Maybe he could still do it. And that's what I loved, is that in every episode, there was always that feeling of just when you'd written someone off, you might have to just count the back in again and go, oh, maybe it is that guy, because he's just repulsive enough to have maybe done it. The end sort of accelerates very quickly into this collapse into a group confession, really, doesn't it? And again, all spearheaded by Hope. And I would say that this would be a good time for us to revisit our single words, right? Because mine really is apropos here. Snot. And I say that because the fabulous actress playing Hope was very in it. And so one of my biggest recollections from the episode, because
that's what you got. That's what you.
Listen, it was so visceral. I remember on the beach, I think Simon had a handkerchief, and he gave her the handkerchief because it was all going. This girl just seemed to be able to turn. I mean, extraordinary, extraordinary. And I'm talking the ugly cry. Do you know what I mean? Like the snot, the bubble, the whole. I did a bit of it there, like spitting.
If I'm watching something and someone's there very beautifully crying, I don't believe it. I'm not buying it.
And also there was a bit of the lady doth protest too much. Like every time we saw Hope, she was so worked up. And I don't know if this was a character decision or a conscious decision on the actress's part, but all credit to her. Who is the director of this episode? We got a reference to
Barrett.
Barrett's an interesting character as well.
He's great.
Fabulous guy, lovely guy. Comes from stunts. And I really enjoyed working with him. A lot of fun, really upbeat character guy.
Note on Dave, he comes from that stunt background. His whole family, his brother is a NASCAR driver.
Go-karts.
His mom is a champion alpine ski racer. The action-oriented guy, and you could actually see it in the episode as well. And he comes back later.
Yeah, Dave became a real fixture for the show, and a very beloved one too. Lovely on a personal note, very talented director. But I do vividly remember Dave always being about, how can we get the stunt angle on this? How about if I could just start the camera up here and slide it down on a wire? It's like, we could just do some coverage, Dave. Where's the fun in that? I want to come from a 20-foot crane that comes down and dips into the ocean and then and I admired that. I was like, so big honorable mention to him.
Sometimes he would come to set with like these contraptions with a camera attached to it. This giant machine that had a little camera, and it would just let him move the camera in crazy angles and movements. Really fun guy to work with.
That's what I appreciated about our core team, both actors, producers, everyone in the crew, is that everyone really wanted to make the best possible show.
Yeah.
And I really loved that. Like, you know, we were all, I think the reason that we clicked as a team and as a family, and hopefully why it resonated, was that we were all so invested in this, you know, what could make it better.
And we mentioned something about this in the past episode. This was my first series regular, and coming in a situation that was this collaborative, this welcoming, this fun. It was unique. We're fortunate to be in this situation with the people that we're working with, and for everybody to be clicking the way they are. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. Not every show is like this. No, absolutely not.
From a fan perspective, you can see when a cast gels, when there's actual chemistry between them. And like you guys, your characters, Cho and Rigsby, they were just pals goofing around a lot of the time. And I think you saying that you guys were really good friends off camera as well, it makes sense. Because although you had to get into the characters themselves, there was still that element of, you could tell that you were just having fun with your friends.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's like I've said in episodes past, NAR, no acting required. So, you know, just to bring this episode to a close, I would love for you guys to tell me about your one-word summaries.
Yes.
Leah, why don't you go first?
So I went with turbulent, and I think as my description at the beginning, I just feel like with every group of people in this episode, there's turbulence. Maybe aside from Flipper and Jane, because they seem to be having a really good time. But the turbulence of the water as well, because in the background of a lot of scenes, especially when they're being hypnotized and you can see and hear the waves crashing, and then obviously the turbulence with the victim's family, with the same thing that Lisbon recognizes from her past. And I loved just the natural way in which he was being interviewed, and then he just turned around to shout for his daughter to make lunch for his son. And it was just so normal and so natural to him that obviously my daughter is now going to take care of my son. And just so much turbulence within that family dynamic, within the friend group, all blaming each other at the end. I think, that's snot, excellent word. Wish I'd gone with that, but there's my little rebuttal.
Thank you, Leah, for basically being the smart, informed counterpoint to my low-level snot.
And so thank you.
You gave a wonderful academic summation, and you're absolutely right. Tim, inevitably fail to follow that up, please.
Yeah, exactly. Mine was more on the nose. For me, growing up...
As on the nose as snot?
Well, not quite that.
All the nose sticking out of a cement block?
Yeah. Real close. Born and raised in California. This episode, to me, was a really great example. My word was Cali, right? And it was done by design to illustrate and give that look of what California feels like through the visuals. Now, Owen, I remember it being sort of an overcast day. And I thought that was great, too, because typically you look at a California setting these days, and it's that bright sun and
Baywatch.
We have overcast days, but the way that they shot it, the way that I'm sure production talked about it, they wanted this show to be very California and very recognizable as California. And that was where it started for me, as this episode, Cali, the state, became a character, started to become a character for this show.
And I think that also brings us in importantly to referencing the CBI, which was a real, it was a real entity. Every time people would ask me, what's the CBI? I'm always reminded of that wonderful Cho quote where you said in a subsequent episode, we're like the FBI, only more conveniently located or something. What was it?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that line?
There was one that said, I've never heard of it in this. And Cho says, well, we need better brand awareness.
Better brand awareness. Yeah. Those kind of, that's amazing. But you're absolutely right. I think California itself, in these first 3 episodes, we're getting a broad sweep of California, and you're absolutely right. It's becoming a character in and of itself. Let us quickly open this up to questions. Usually at this point in the show, Leah, we read out some fan questions, but why don't we give you the opportunity maybe to ask some questions that you may have?
Yes. So Do you guys have a specific episode or even season that really sticks out in your mind from the show? It could be that you remember something from behind the scenes that made it a really good day or a really bad day, or something in the episode that always draws you back to it.
One that immediately comes to mind was a sort of a nice conflation of real life and art. So within a 2-week period, I got married in real life and got married on the show. The up and down of Van Pelt and Rigsby, like I say, the path of true love never runs smooth on TV. But by the time we'd actually committed to the idea of getting married, it opened up a whole other different world for us. I'll never forget also, and then I'll hand it over to Tim, but I'll never forget Tim rushing from set on his motorbike one day to go to the birth of his daughter. And that to me was a huge moment, because that was the first time any of us had kids. Life was just happening and changing around us, and that was beautiful. So little things like that. How about you, mate?
We were on location, and it was the evening, and I remember leaving my house, went to work. We shot the first scene, and it was this complicated crane shot coming down, and all of us were in it. We shoot this master shot that comes down, and I have like a few lines, and all of us are walking down the path. And then that was the master. We go to do coverage. So we go back to our chairs, and I pick up my phone. I see, Gina's dad has called, and I checked the voicemail, and all he said was, "Tim, it's time." Click. And that was it. And
Wow.
and we had rehearsed this. We know what's going. I know where to go. Grabbed all my stuff out of my chair. Walked up to Chris Long, one of our executive producers, and we had already planned all this. I went to Chris. I said, "Hey, Chris, I got to go." And he looked me straight in the eye and went, "You got to go." I jumped in my car back to LA, and so was there for the birth of my daughter. After that, the thought occurred to me. I said, "Hey, how are they going to get around this? Like, I'm literally front and center. They completely shot around me. They reshot that whole master. Didn't need me at all. Owen picked up my lines, and it was without it. Like, show never existed. It was so easy."
Tim was over the moon to welcome a baby daughter, and I was over the moon to get 6 new lines. So it was like,
Great day all
I was
round.
almost sad that I wasn't paid per word, because
everybody won.
everybody won. We really, really did. Do you have a specific favorite episode, and if so, why? Because I'd love to hear from an audience standpoint what episode resonates with you.
Yes.
So I was a big fan of the ups and downs of Rigsby and Van Pelt. I was hooked. I wanted to see where it went. An episode I always remember, and excuse me if I pronounce it wrong, but Angevit Bar.
Yeah, I never knew how to say that word either. Yeah.
But that episode, is it Hightower? The new
That's right.
manager comes
Madeline
in.
Hightower. Yeah, Anjani
Yes,
Ellis's character. Yes.
And I remember she'd had the talk with Lisbon about, well, how long have you known? And Lisbon has to kind of play dumb at first, like, I didn't know that Rigsby and Van Pelt were a couple. I think that episode was the breakup, because they both want to keep their jobs, and Rigsby's prepared to go to a different department entirely. It was that feeling of like, I really didn't want them to break up, but like you said, it's the ups and downs, the turbulence of a relationship that you want to see where it goes, because part of you knows that you're going to get your happy ending, but you want to see how you get there. That's definitely an episode that I will always think of. Maybe it's because I can't pronounce the name as well, and I've just been trying to work it out all these years.
I'm going to go away and making my homework to understand.
Yeah.
That's so funny you should say it, because that's where audiences and actors, I think, share a similar suspension, because one of the big anxieties, I think, for Amanda and I was, is there going to be a time where this relationship runs its course and then one or other of us is going to have to leave the show? So that anxiety is sort of just as real for the performers as it is for audience members who are like, I don't want to lose this relationship, or I don't want to lose this beloved character. In the same way, we're sitting there going, well, if Rigsby does decide to go off in the story and pursue his thing or leave, does that mean I have to leave? Because I'm not ready to leave. I don't want to go.
We don't want to lose our favourite character. You don't want to lose your job. I feel like there's quite a big difference.
Yes, exactly. I think that is where you and I are definitely united. But I think week over week, that is why I think also there's never that feeling of just settling in and relaxing. I always feel like in the entertainment industry, you're only as good as your next job. Because the minute you've booked a job, the next question is, well, what's next? And no one really asks that in acting terms. Like if you're with other actors, no one ever says, what are you doing? Or what's next? If you had to describe The Mentalist in 3 words for someone who'd never seen it, what would those 3 words be?
Part of me really wants to just say turbulent, snot and Callie.
I mean, there you go. That would be the perfect 3 words for this episode.
Okay, 3 words. Charismatic.
Oh.
Nice.
Twisty. And...
like that?
realistic. I think in a lot of aspects, obviously there are multiple deaths every episode, but I do think it really does depict the more entertaining side of crime work. So
Leah, I want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. The bar has been set as a guest co-host formidably high.
Extremely high.
Thank you. You were every bit as wonderful as I knew you would be, and I hope you'll come back and join us again at some point. We would love to.
Yes,
we'd love to have you back.
I cannot thank you guys enough for this experience. I hope that's a genuine offer of coming back, because I would love that so much. Well,
ladies and gentlemen, Leah Andrew, give it up, please. Just a phenomenal co-host. And that's where we'll leave it. Ladies in Red, the next episode, that's what we'll be looking at. Do not miss the opportunity to join us next week on episode 4, where we will have a guest so secret that I haven't even told Tim who it is yet. So,
I'm waiting.